Have you ever heard anyone or caught yourself placing any form of stereotype on a baseball player? For instance, what would you do if you saw any one of these athletes? Maybe on the street, maybe on the field, maybe even on TV. So, along with that, we get to see how sports media also plays into how we as an audience perceive these players. So, in this article published back in 2016 by Patrick Ferrucci, he really focuses on this one study that he does. So, what he did was go to I think he went to two universities, mainly rounded up female participants, which was kind of odd. Um, Kind of it skews the research a little bit, but what he asked them to do was look at a picture and then read a passage that was attached to this picture, and then ask them to rate the credibility of that unknown author. So what that told Ferrucci was if they rated that author as credible, they probably believed in the same stereotypes that were being placed on that athlete. But if they didn't rate that author as credible, they thought something else. So, through this presentation, I will explain how Patrick Ferrucci's article demonstrates how sports media has an effect on others' perceptions of baseball players and how these stereotypes are different between races in our world. So, to begin, I'll give you a little bit of background on stereotypes and their kind of upbringing in baseball. They kind of started back in kind of the late 1800s when the black and white difference was kind of the focus. But these stereotypes allow reporters to portray athletes in really any way they want to. That can be bold, that can be out there, but it can also be very subtle and not even noticeable. And it's the repeated stereotypes is why we live in a world we live in today, because they just get ingrained into our brains. So after giving you a little bit of background, I'm going to show you how Ferrucci and the other studies and authors he used kind of just show how this stereotyping is different between these races. His main focus was really on the stereotypes and the difference between race. Research showed that back in 2013, there was a poll of players in the league that 61.2% was white, 28.2% was Latino, and only 8.3% was African American. So through that and the divine model of stereotyping, it kind of tells us, well, it does tell us that stereotypes pop up automatically in our heads. We see a player and it's just there. We can't control it. This helps Ferrucci's study because it shows us the difference in the different descriptions between his players. Like, black players are getting labeled as physically strong, and white players are getting labeled as smart leaders, and Latino players are getting labeled as maybe fiery or flashy. Along with stereotypes, the media has a huge play in the perception of athletes. Broadcasters have the ability to put out a belief that may be credible, but the people who watch that broadcast believe in it no matter what. And it allows an audience group, me, anyone else, to only watch things that they believe in. Just like maybe they only watch Fox or they only watch any other news broadcasting system. Many studies show broadcasters describing players differently, and whites were usually described as, like I said, intelligent or hardworking, and blacks were usually labeled as strong or naturally gifted. So through that, Ferrucci really concludes that this study helps us see the effect of stereotypes and its effect in sports media as well, and how broadcasters lay out their work around these stereotypes to get more views, more credibility, just all around stigmatizing the world we live in. I lost it. I'm sorry, I had it. To tie it all together, Ferrucci and other authors' works and studies can be applied to media in the sports world to help change sports culture and the stereotyping alone. So the next time you see an athlete out there on the street, don't label them. They're an athlete that wants to get better. They're not defined by who they are, what color, their gender, nothing like that. Change the culture.